Good morning. This is Pastor Neel, and this would be the fourth Sunday in Lent reading, John 9, verses 1 through 41. As he walked along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" And Jesus answered, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world." When he had said this, he spat on the ground and made mud with the saliva and spread the mud on the man's eyes, saying to him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. Then he went and washed and came back able to see. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar began to ask, "Is this not the man who used to sit and beg?" Some were saying, "It is he." Others were saying, "No, but it is someone like him." He kept saying, "I am the man." But they kept asking him, "Then how were your eyes opened?" And he answered him, "The man called Jesus made mud, spread it on my eyes, and said to me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' Then I went and washed and received my sight." They said to him, "Where is he?" And he said, "I do not know." They brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. And now it was a Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and opened his eyes. Then the Pharisees also began to ask him how he received his sight. And he said to them, "He put mud on my eyes, then I washed, and now I see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he does not observe the Sabbath." But others said, "How can a man who is a sinner perform such signs?" And they were divided. So they said again to the blind man, "What do you say about him? It was your eyes he opened." And he said, "He is a prophet." The Jews did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they called the parents of the man who had received his sight and asked them, "Is this your son who you say was born blind? How then does he now see?" His parents answered, "We know that this is our son and that he was born blind. But we do not know how it is that he now sees, nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him. He is of age. He will speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews, for the Jews had already agreed that anyone who confessed Jesus to be the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. Therefore his parents said, "He is of age. Ask him." So, for the second time, they called the man who had been blind, and they said to him, "Give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner." He answered, "I do not know whether he is a sinner. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see." They said to him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" And he answered them, "I have told you already, and you would not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples?" Then they reviled him, saying, "You are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he comes from." The man answered, "Here is an astonishing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but he does listen to one who worships him and obeys his will. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." They answered him, "You were born entirely in sins, and you are trying to teach us?" And they drove him out. Jesus heard that they had driven him out, and when he found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" And he answered, "And who is he, sir? Tell me, so that I may believe in him." And Jesus said to him, "You have seen him, and the one speaking with you is he." He said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshiped him. Jesus said, "I came into this world for judgment, so that those who do not see may see, and those who do see may become blind." Some of the Pharisees near him heard this and said to him, "Surely we are not blind, are we?" And Jesus said to them, "If you were blind, you would not have sin. But now that you say, 'We see,' your sin remains." Here ends the reading of the gospel. This is a long text. This is one of the series of long texts where we have these incredible stories of Jesus being with, healing, and working with the people. Let's review this real briefly. Okay? Jesus comes across a blind man from birth, and that is significant in this story. He heals him. He sends the blind man to the Pharisees to be declared clean. Pharisees get upset. There's a he said, she said, and in the end, the former man ends up back to Jesus, right? And somewhere in the middle of all this, there is the importance of the fact that this guy can now see. Imagine, and this isn't spoken about in the text, imagine he never saw before, and now all of a sudden he sees. That had to be an incredible thing for him. And he also comes to believe in Jesus. Two incredible things. Understand the politics, though, going on here. Hey, Jesus heals him and sends him to this pool of Siloam. Now that's where they would have gone. The pool of Siloam, and even to this day, is known and believed to be healing. So dipping yourself into that pool would have been understood that he would have had healing properties. He also had to get back to the Pharisees because he was born blind. And because he was, it was understood that he was in sin even at birth. And so he was shunned. The text calls this, he was a beggar. That's how he made his living. Because he was shunned. So he had to go back to those Pharisees to be declared clean or not a sinner, so he could enter back into society. So all of that is why some of this all went on. Nevertheless, never in the text do we hear anybody saying, "How does it feel now for you to see again?" More so, it's all about, how'd this happen? Where did that go? Who's the guy? What do you think about this Jesus guy? All those kinds of things. A lot of distraction, it seems to me, from what is really important here. Think about that for a second. A lot of distraction. A lot of us find ourselves glued to the news, don't we? A lot of us find ourselves wanting to hear the most recent updates. Who's saying what about this whole virus thing? On and on again. And in the mix of all of that, where's Jesus? You know, it occurs to me, I was in the grocery store the other day because, well, you got to eat, right? And it amazes me that grocery stores had to tell me I could only have one bottle of spaghetti sauce and one can of corn. That was it. Because people have been so distracted by this thing that they are emptying shelves. What happens when we really run out of toilet paper at home? Distractions. All of this is distraction around this virus, and we're missing where we need to grab a hold of, and that is with our God. Now, I'm not saying, and I would never say, that we shouldn't be doing the things the CDC is telling us to do. That isn't the point. But somewhere in the mix, where is Jesus that tends to be with our behaviors, be about who we are, what we're supposed to be doing? How is indeed Jesus active in our lives? There is a sense here in this text that the newly sighted man had to go through a process. Had to happen, right? That was all important for him to be able to enter back into society. But in the end, that should have been a short little process. Think about it. How long does it take us to disinfect our house, to wash our hands, to do all the things that we have to do? And then, since we're stuck at home, then what do we do with the rest of our day? And there it is. How much of that day then is filled with God? Which is the real point, which is the only way we're going to find hope and calmness, because we're not going to get that from the CDC. That's not their role. They can't give us that. Basically, they're giving us good practices and the fact that they don't know. But God, we know. God, we understand, will be there. God will walk with us for as long as it takes. Had the newly sighted man focused on the Pharisee stuff, what he would have lost is faith in Jesus. We don't want to lose that. So despite what's going on, Jesus is there. And always will be. And that's something you can hang your hat on. Amen.